Okay, hi. I wonder how we're going to do today. This has become really, really difficult now because I've decided that maybe that crazy guy I was talking about in the previous one, maybe he was all wrong. Knut, maybe he was wrong. I mean, he's saying flu doesn't really cause any problems. It never does. We're used to it. That's uh, and I don't know. I mean, there's different things that I at various times I've recently in the last couple of days while I've been thinking about it, I've decided flu does cause pandemics. You're probably gonna, if you just tune into this and you haven't watched the others, you're not gonna have a clue as to what I'm going on about. So I said this guy was great, but I'm wrong because this is nastier than flu. Yeah, and he was taking a bit of an offhand attitude, saying herd immunity will actually protect the old people, and the sooner we get it, the better. And I was agreeing with it. Yeah, definitely, definitely, because um, the, the things that are making me change my mind a little bit is not the fact that lots of people are dying, but perhaps the fact that lots of NHS workers are dying. And is it more? This is a big question. Are more of them dying than you know uh, you'd expect in a flu outbreak? Right. And the other thing is, when I've studied, there's some brilliant videos on the 1918 flu pandemic. I don't have the details offhand. I think it's like history. It's kind of like some kind of history YouTube. And there's 6 episodes on the 1918 flu pandemic. And I really recommend people have a look at them if they're interested in what I'm talking about. And I've just watched them since I made the last vid. And I can't help thinking, well, I mean, there's loads of interesting information on it. Like there was that they started making vaccines at the time. None of the vaccines there worked, so maybe there's a lesson for today's vaccine makers that you can't be 100% sure that your vaccines are going to work, and bear in mind the 1918 flu. They're more likely to be better these days. They should be, because we've had years of making vaccines since then. We didn't have that experience back then. Say we, whoever was making them didn't have that experience. So the world should be in a better place. So when I say we, I mean the world. Yeah, on that one. Yeah. Um, what? Uh, Antibiotics. Yeah. The big difference between the 1918 flu and pretty much any flu since is we've had, any big pandemic since, is we've had antibiotics, and they're good at curing most of the bacteria that cause pneumonia. There is a secondary infection that occurs after the virus. They are the bacteria that comes in, colonizes the weakened mucosa, where the virus has just ruptured loads of cells and left loads of dead tissue behind. Yeah. Oh my God, I'm just so not ready for doing this, am I? What we're doing in the last one, we're doing kind of all the silly thing. It's not silly. It's talking like this is on the phone now to like doctor in Delhi. And he's talking like this one to you. And he's saying, maybe I could come and work in your country. And you're saying, well, what it is actually, I don't know your name. I'll call you Rajiv for the hell of it. But what I'm thinking, Rajiv, is there's no bloody way you can coming and you are can be coming and can be coming and working in my country if you are talking like this one. You have to talk like like the man in the video is talking. You have to stop your head wobbling. You have to stop going on and on about your mother. You have to just say just the facts, and you have to kind of like be a bird with clipped wings in your language. so so yes, you can come to our country if you like. Rajiv says, I've just been taken over by like some big authoritarian sort of white man in England. You can come to our country and you can practice your medicine, but don't go talking like that, like some kind of Peter Sellers. Exactly, exactly, yeah. So I don't know. I mean, I do those two. I do those. What else would you? I would do whatever you want, really. Whatever you want, or give me something. I don't Birmingham. You do Birmingham. I don't like Brum actually. To be quite honest with you, I've got no time for Brum or people from Brum because I don't know. It's like they're I don't know what to say really. They're famous for being Birmingham. Yeah. Um, I don't really. I don't know. I'm left a bit nonplussed when it comes to Brum really. What can you say? What can you say about Brum? What's it famous for? Cars, houses. West Bromwich Albion. Um, Dudley. Famous for Dudley. It's not famous for Dudley. Dudley and Birmingham are completely different. Okay, enough of that one. uh, well, something more, haven't we? No, I'm just not in the mood, am I? So whether it's sunny outside, yeah, but I'm just bored because I haven't got a girlfriend, see? So I've got to sit in by myself because I go out there and I have to speak to all people without a girlfriend. It's like, oh, can't be bothered with this, you know. So I'm not expecting anyone to watch this. Haven't even uploaded it yet. I'm still recording, as you know, as you do. So 3 minutes short, like you know. What to do? What to do? So that's it. No, I'm not going to talk about those stupid chat lines where you spend loads of coins getting strung along for nothing. I'm going to try and come back to what I'm trying to make massive breakthroughs to cure this pandemic, so we can all go back to work and school and on the weekend, like the bank holiday is now. Bank holiday, it's a Saturday of the bank holiday weekend. Everyone should be having fun, and instead they're not. And that includes people like me who are trying to get a date. I'm not into dating. I don't know how to do it. Um, if I've got a girlfriend, then that's fine. We're either going out or we're not. But like just hooking up with a stranger and saying, let's go out for a drink or something, I can't do it. I don't know how to do it. So uh, or dinner. Yeah, I don't know how to do it. I've got to get rid of that Birmingham accent, haven't I? It's still it's just chasing after me. American. Uh, yeah, quite often actually. Quite often, but we just kind of we're struggling to find a voice today. I think for some reason, we like to listen. You know, we like to listen. We like to think. We like to think before we speak. We don't always find that that makes it easy to get a word in because you got to consider what you're going to say. They've already changed the topic of conversation long ago. So yeah, what are we? We're trying to work on this. What do you call it? This viral epidemic. Viral epidemic. Yeah. So there was some talk about the shit that's going down with mutations that this could turn out to be. There could not only could there be a second wave, which there wouldn't have been if we used herd immunity, as we've seen over the previous episodes, but there's also the danger that this during the long extended time that it takes to come to the second wave, that during that time nastier versions, variants, mutants will have arisen. And what do we do? Do we worry or do we just get on with it when they arise? Okay, so the answer came back from the team, FAS, I'll call them for want of anything better, and it more or less said without me quoting word for word or verbatim what it says. I keep moving, don't I? Yeah, sometimes I'm this, sometimes I'm that. You know what? The West Coast totally different, right? Because there's dudes out there that left like probably where I grew up. They got on a ship. They went over to the U.S. They went all the way over. Somehow they found their way to the West Coast. Families or individuals who are descended, is some person in their family tree and things like that. Yeah, and they have not. They've just kept going that way, and they may have never gone back. They may have just said, I may have been to like Detroit or New Orleans or New York, but I've never left the States, and no one in my family has ever left the States, or something like that, right? And and these people when they go, if they ever go, these West Coast guys, yeah, if they ever go west, they can't. Oh yeah, Hawaii. If they ever go east, they don't change. They don't just become like a New Yorker when they get there. You just stay a West Coast person. They say, I really hate it here. I'm going back to like California or Oregon or Washington State or whatever it is. You know, because they when they got there, those families that got there, they went there by foot, by train, by horse, by whatever it was. Horse. They all went there by horse. They all went there by horse originally. Yeah, every single damn one of them was on the back of a horse or a wagon. The wagon train. Those folks you see in the westerns from like 50 years back, that's still true today. It's not like they were making a movie and they all pretended to be like it was back then, and then at the end of the movie, they stopped being that. They was that. They didn't have to act to be that. You meet them today, they're still the same folk. They've got a wagon trail behind them, engines shot with guns. You know, that's their history. That's the only history they're interested in. And then before that, there was some shit from England or something like that, which they don't really care too much about because obviously they weren't like the king or queen back there, so that's why they left in the first place. It's very interesting, isn't it? It's fascinating, yes. And one of the things I suppose we should add is he actually prefers being an American West Coast. Who can blame him, right? Now I'm not sure if this is all 5G, all or what, but I'm really not sure if it's just me that's putting up with this shit or what. Uh, I don't really. I don't know. You know. I get into a character. I don't know enough about it. I don't have a photograph. I don't have a history. I don't have an acting agent or a director telling me what the character is. I just got to work it out because it comes through me. Whereas normally you get to know a bit about it, and then you get close. It's like I know some logger in Oregon or something like that, right? And you say, okay, what's the Oregon accent like, and what would he look like, and what kind of yeah, and then maybe by the end of the movie, you're like, you'll live in this guy, and he's coming through you, and you're still there, and you're acting it out, no problem. But for me, it's just he tries to come through. He's coming through now. Well, this is it. I don't know if he's really an Oregon logger or not. Probably more likely some kind of I don't know. Why is he? I don't know. He likes to lie. he he's just he. Oh, why give him his name? Oh, John Daniels from Portland or something like that. And there probably is one. He probably talks just like this, or he's dead or something like that. Yeah, so freak people out. I but I could keep coming up with a new name. I could just do Bob Hoskins. Bob Hoskins. There was a Bob Hoskins, wasn't there? He's an English dude. Yeah, he was. Yeah, but obviously when you see this guy in America on the movies, you just say he's like English American, like an Italian American. You don't realize he actually is just turned up and just could handle it. He could handle it. He could handle his family that lived there for generations, but nobody knew that they hadn't. Nobody had a problem with it. Yeah, he didn't try to live out in the in the in the wilderness with the grizzly bears. Yeah, whatever them grizzlies. Them grizzly bears. Yeah, I like grizzly bears. Oh yeah, yeah. You go to these places, kind of. You go into like the local lodge or something. And there's a grizzly bear there on the wall. It's a real bear. They didn't import it. They shot it like just 5 yards down the road. Yeah, they did. Yeah, he used to live there, so he still lives there. Only now there's folk there, and it wouldn't be safe if he could move. Okay. So, but you're not really Oregon at all. I don't know why Oregon crept in there. I've got no idea why Oregon crept in there, crept in there. I mean, the thing is, California. I mean, hard to imagine California without imagining LA and the big city folk. Because California just seems to be big city folk, you know. It don't seem to be, don't seem to be wilderness folk no more. All the old gold mining days, pounding for gold. I can imagine myself doing that. Yeah, just having a little log cabin in the woods and a little river out front. And just every now and then go pound a bit of gold. Once I got enough, get on my horse into town, sell the gold, buy a girl. You know, come in the morning, I'm heading back to the log cabin with some supplies from the grocery store. Yeah, fancy doing that again. Yeah. I'm gonna need some more gold, she said. I said, why don't you come with me up at the log cabin? She said, I'm mighty fine here. I got everything I need. Hell, I nearly got my gun out of my holster right there. They've got guns up there, you know. They got real guns. They got guns. I'm not kidding. You know, it's like you got a telephone. You know, he got a gun. Going out, gonna need to take my mobile phone. Gonna take my mobile phone. See, that's my phone with my credit cards there to spend the money. Only it's not a credit card, it's only a debit card because I ain't rich enough to have a credit card. What else you got there? I got the old antibody here, which goes and rings and tells me when my dinner's ready. Put that one down there. Add a sound effect. You'll like that. What else we got? I don't know, man. I'm out of shit. You know? It's like being on the phone to someone, but the phone he ain't there. I just got to imagine he's there, but it's not too difficult. He's really there. You see? Oh, he is. Yeah, I often mentioned it. I said this to my psychiatrist. Actually, it was a psychiatric nurse. I don't get on with shrinks anymore. They tried about three. Man, so now I get a nurse, but it's a man. And there's another nurse that sometimes comes along with him, and that's a man too. And let's see. I'm not sure I can remember much. Uh, am I slipping in a Florida accent there? You know, I don't think Florida's got a real accent because everyone come down from New York and it's southern, but it's not Alabama, is it? It's not Alabama, no. Florida probably does. Are the real Floridans, or do they just people from Miami come from Cuba and all the people come from like New England or retire there, so I'm not really sure it's very easy to spot a Florida accent, but there was that boy. You got to know. This is the funny story. I'm gonna relay this story now. The cleaner, the boy that came to the hotel, was staying in Cocoa Beach, and the boy came to the hotel. He come to the door, and my roomie had gone, and he starts talking to me. I'm still half asleep, and he asked me my name, and he's a little bit gay, I mean, like really gay. And I'm thinking, I'll be polite. He asked me my name, I'll tell him, no problem. Like I'm typical American, right? Whereas an Englishman would be like, huh? Are you trying to kill me? What is it? Why do you want to know my name? What is it to you? None of your business, is it? I'm not a secret agent, but I'm not going to tell you anything. So, so there it is. Uh, so he was talking to me, asked my name. Then my roomie come back another day, and he was there when the cleaner came in, and I wasn't there. And he said, "Hey, he was this guy Brian. He's from Ohio. You heard of Ohio over there? Yeah." So he was from there. He was actually from. I can do better. Oh, you can? Yeah. He wasn't from Buffalo, but he was near Buffalo. Not too far. Buffalo's in. I can't remember right now, sir. Where are we now? Is that the sheriff? Might be. I'm not sure. But where is it he's from? Oh, he from hell. Uh, there's a load of cities over there. Yeah, yeah. The cities you hardly ever heard of, and they're massive. They got hundreds of people. Yeah, thousands even, maybe millions. Some of them. um, does it matter? Yeah, I want to remember. Damn, damn, I can't remember where he's from. Okay, maybe it's a secret. We're not allowed to let that know. Okay, so anyway, he came from like, it'll come to me in a minute. I'll say it just in the middle of the conversation, just randomly. Okay, so, yeah, so he says to me, obviously by this stage, knowing the clean is like really gay, right? And I'm obviously like not really gay, but you know, uh, hey, I want to make it big, so whatever it takes, you know. um, so he says to me, his name's Brian. He says, no, no, not the cleaner, the other guy. I don't know what the cleaner's name was. I never figured that out. He says, hey, I was talking to the cleaner, and he was saying, where's Jamie? You know, where's Jamie? Or James. It might have been James back then. Yeah, yeah. I interchange. We're in different places where I am and things like that. It gets confusing. James is popular. You get two Jameses, so I say, hey, fuck it, I'm Jamie, you know. And then there's a Jamie, so I say, hey, I'm James, you know. So it's do you know what? I thought it was short. You know, like Jim. Everyone knows Jim is short for James. I thought it was short. Everyone knew it was short, so it's just a. It turns out it's actually a different name. I mean, it's related, but that's technical from a specific website I looked at where it said it's not actually a short form of James. So my mom, who wanted to call me Jamie, but she christened me James because she said Jamie's short for James, and James isn't a saint's name, so you gotta have a saint's name. So she christened me James on my birth certificate, but she always called me Jamie. Yeah, that's where it all came from. Yeah, not of my making. No. So anyway, the Florida guy. I reckon he's coming back. You know, I think that was him earlier. That's why we got onto this. I don't know why. Well, I gotta find a thing somebody to say, and he's there. My God, I gotta. The story was so Brian said. So I was talking to the cleaner earlier. He was saying that he was saying, you know, where's James? And I was like, all right. And so, how does he know your name? And like, when did you meet him? Because we're nearly always in the room together. And it might have been the morning I, s- I didn't make it in. I guess I had flu or something, and I couldn't make it. And and so the cleaner's there at the door talking to me when I'm half asleep, and I'm thinking, oh, I didn't really think anything of it. I probably just went into the shower and got changed. And then Brian comes back going, you know. So I remember denying it because I'm like, I didn't tell him, I don't remember telling him my name because I didn't. And of course, but he knew it. And he's like, well, Brian's like, well, how did he know your name then? Oh my God, he's been going through our stuff. And I'm like, oh no, I've got this guy into trouble. We didn't really probably didn't do anything wrong, but I was thinking I must have given him my name, but I actually couldn't remember that conversation. When I wake up in the morning, I'm like most people. If you're talking to me, and especially if you're a stranger, a stranger talking to you when you're getting up out of bed. I mean, it's fair enough if you knew them the night before, right? So anyway, that's hopefully that one cleared up. Yeah, but yeah, and you know what? Uh, the you know, oh the West Coast. The West Coast really, really had a really ravaged me. Do you know what I mean? I think what happened, you know, I mean, I reckon you get like a lot of Buddhists on the West Coast, yeah. But have they ever been to like the land of the Buddha? Some of them have actually, yeah. That's the kind of place they might go if they're going to leave America. They might say, "I'm rich. I'm a Buddhist. Uh, I'll go and I'll go to like India or something like that." They won't go to England. Why would they want to go to London and see all the cathedrals and the hotels in London and the Stonehenge and all that? Um, ah, that's why you're not going to meet an American in London. unless you work in a hotel or you're like a prostitute, or maybe you work in one of the, you're a driver in a bus or something like that, because they just meet other Americans. I'm absolutely sure, and they're happy with that. That's enough. That's exciting. Yeah, yeah. But so you've met American people. Oh yeah, yeah. No, I spent 6 weeks. I spent a lot of time in America actually. For a British person, I've spent a lot of time in America. I mean, not like a lot of British people who go over there and live there are different. Yeah. Oh, and then they kind of, if they live there, a lot of them will kind of convert to being American, certainly while they're there, because you want to fit in. Yeah, the accent you end up learning it, right? It's an easy language to learn. Yeah, but that's one thing when you learn it because you're hearing it every day. Yeah, but learning it when you're not hearing it every day, I mean, yeah, you get it from the movies. But I must be getting it from you. Well, this is the thing. I thought maybe, when I get these, I thought they're like spirits, you know? And I'm a scientist, so I can't be dealing with spirits. We were talking just earlier. We did a long little chat to ourselves now on this, but it's pretty interesting how basically we the doctors grew out of the wizards and the nurses. I don't know. I think we might have concluded they kind of grew out of the witches. But we were saying how the cooks these days, you can't be a cook who cooks with weird herbs that might poison you in a way a witch might have done in the past. Because we figured out which herbs do what through the herbalist, and so a cook has to be very careful not to have poisonous herbs in his kitchen. But in the old days, that would have come from the garden. So the gardener actually had to know what was poisonous and what wasn't, and what was grown and what wasn't, and what was in the shop. There wasn't really a shop, there was the gardener. Yeah. And so we've gone through all this about how there were actually witch doctors who kind of worked between witches and between medicine, the old kind of thing, and how they were probably pretty much the druids. Um, and all kinds of stuff. We talked about all kinds of stuff. Yeah. I'm trying to think why this is important. Why we were going to mention it. Yeah. I'm not really sure. Something to do with nurses, something to do with wizards, something to do with witch doctors, something like that. I think it was just, the whole point about the cook, if he wants to keep his job, is he stays a cook and doesn't become a witch, or she stays a cook and doesn't become a witch. Yeah. You know what I mean, right? Yeah. So all these professions became legalized industries. So the herbalist has to be very careful about what he's got a license. Yeah. The same way a doctor's got a license, and a pharmacist or a drugstore keeper's got a license. Also, a public house selling alcoholic beverages, also a license, also linked to we were saying how the House of Ill Repute, you know, you might drink their alcoholic decoctions. In the old days, you weren't really going to eat their food unless you were taking a risk. You wanted safe food. You would probably avoid the food from a public house or go for the food in, I guess, a restaurant. And that's the gist of the difference. Because the witches, brewing everything, trying this, trying that. Yeah, yeah, so it was a real good discussion. We're not really doing it justice, but hopefully you get the gist of it. And the point being that you can't become a spiritual medium channeling the dead, which is more or less what my acting training, doing huge amounts of improvisation, that basically collapsed my brain and allowed me to start channeling spirits and the dead and characters that aren't just me doing an accent like I expected acting to be, but they're actually a spirit. That if we work well, he allows me to still be myself, but he allows me also, or insists, that I am true to him, sometimes her as well. Yeah. And that is kind of, I've not heard of acting that is also psychic mediumship. I know people will say, oh, I'm playing a character was a real character and is now dead. And I kind of, it's kind of like, they might say it's kind of like channeling the ghost. It full on is, man. I didn't know that. I never really thought I've never heard them say it's like channeling the ghost. I thought they'd just study it. They'd look at what they've got. They'd imagine what it was like. They'd talk the way they talked, and yeah. So for them, from I don't know. I mean, I'll do all the characters I do just because they'll come through me. So if somebody wants to give me a script and say the ghost is with that script, then I won't read the script. I'll just know the character, because I'll say, okay, most appropriate character, tell me what you want to say. Tell me who you want me to be. But I won't say it because I'm not used to that. And also, I don't meet people who give me scripts, ever. Once in my life in India, yeah. But but I didn't even read it, and I didn't even try to channel the dead. Back then I was a scientist on an extended holiday, and the point I was trying to make is I kind of became the spirit medium because I went to India, probably took some substances which were part of the witch doctor's set of tools. And part of the reason I did this was when I was doing my PhD, it was hard work and there was very little respect. And I'd go to some acting classes in the evening, in the final year, I think it was. Yeah. And I had the best time of my life, pissing around with other guys, doing crazy stuff. I didn't get to do crazy stuff at work doing my PhD. I mean, you might think it was crazy, but to me, it was just every day. It was just the everyday run of the mill, no personality required, and not only that, no personality expected, and not only that, put a little bit of personality in, and I'm beginning to think you think you're more important than everyone else here. We're just doing science. If anyone's going to dare develop a personality, it's the head of the lab, because it kind of gets forced on him, whereas the rest of us, we've got one. We just suppress it because it's not needed. So come the end of the day, and it's a distraction as well. If you start mucking around, start deciding to have small talk when you're supposed to be concentrating on how much of this substance you're putting into this tube and that tube, and whether you've put it into this tube or that tube, and whether you designed your experiment right in the first place, and if you did, then you've got to stick to it rigidly. If you forget and you're only doing it once, it's not like all these other jobs where the first week is new to you, but you do it the same every day, every hour. You're on a call, you do the same scripts, answer the same kind of questions. For the first week, you keep getting new questions every time someone phones up. After that, call center sort of thing, you're like, I've heard all the questions, I know all the answers, and you just say, which one is it? And you give it. And if somebody, and even then, even in call centers, nobody they don't want to, anything you put in, your personality goes into the call and speaking to the person you're with, engaging with the person you're with. There's no room for talking to your mates on the side and having and building rapport or building a relationship or building, chatting about what you did last week. There's no time for it. They're on a call, you're on a call. And then you break, well, hell, 15 minutes and you don't see the same people every break. You're on different shifts, things like that. It was hell. I hated it. But point being, it's one of the only things I've done apart from science that I can talk about. Yeah. But so back then we were like psychic medium stuff. Yeah, but you got to realize when you're living with I mean, I didn't have a partner, but when psychic medium stuff doesn't come just like that. I don't think it comes just like that for anyone. Mainly because it comes when you're spending a lot of time on your own, in isolation, not necessarily meditating, but just living your life. You do the dishes, you have a shower, you read the news, you watch television, you play with your phone, you might phone someone up. Some people, they live on their own, they've got a friend, they phone them all the time, they're always talking to them, that's who their relationship with. They might have 2 or 3 friends, they might do that. They might go out and see them now and then. You might try and find a new friend. Yeah. I kind of, for some reason, I don't know. I'm not really going to talk about the path that took me there, but I found myself alone a lot, and so I suppose I started. It's only natural that you start talking to the spirits in the house. Um, the strange thing is that they're not just in the house. They seem to live with me. They're, I guess, like Holy Spirits or something like that. They live with me. Now, before I'd been to America, I probably didn't have any Holy Spirits to live with me that were West Coast American. Um, I might have bumped into some characters that live in Washington or New York or Florida, but I wasn't really living there. No, I was. I hadn't. Dare I say it? I hadn't taken LSD when I went to Florida and Washington and New York, but I had taken LSD when I went to California, and maybe it makes a difference. I don't know. Yeah, I'm sure it does. I'm sure it does. I think it's I think it's it's one of those things you can't go back from, but at the same time, when it works well, you wouldn't want to. If it frees you up and says, "Hey, uh, now you now you don't mind like dancing in a pub by yourself," yeah. Whereas before, you'd be like, just you'd need friends there. I can go to a pub by myself and just piss about. I don't care, and then I'll leave. Maybe it's an age thing. I don't know. I don't do it very often. No, and I do feel lonely, but at the same time, I think I have problems with these. You know, I can hear music beautifully as long as it's loud. I can hear it. I can hear it. I can dance to it. I can enjoy it. But I can't talk while there's music playing. Yeah, uh, because I can't understand what you're saying. Yeah, uh, and when I talk, I don't have a voice that people just instantly say, I know what you're saying. I understand your voice. I understand your accent. I can hear everything you say when you move your lips. I can read your lips, even if I can't hear a word that you're saying. Well, most people can't lip read very well, and you know, a conversation is only a two-way thing. If both of you are returning the ball, if one of you is just like, then all you're going to get is it'd be boring, right? Maybe that's what I need to do, but maybe it would get me. Maybe I'll find a girlfriend. I don't know. It's been so long now. I'm beginning to think there might be more boys. So maybe if I aim, plus you at least double your chances. Yeah, yeah, I could, I suppose, but what's the attraction? I muscles looks good. Muscles is good. I'd find muscles attractive. If I had to be gay, I would say I would probably want someone with muscles, but hey, probably wouldn't everyone. And so I probably, unless I was like, I don't know, it's a tougher one. Why have we gone down that route? Uh, uh, because I can't get a girlfriend. This is that's I'm kind of being isolated. I've I can't do an ordinary job. I can't do an acting job because I'll suddenly try and be a scientist and it'll freeze me up inside. Yeah, and I can't do a creative job because I missed the important years, the creative years. Sorry, not the creative years, but the important years in the creative industry is when you're like teenage years. That's the big seller, right? Teenage years is the big seller. Before that is important childhood years. A little bit after that, there's coping with the relationship years. Yeah, but teenage years is when people spend every penny they've got on the latest cool thing that helps them understand the world or establish themselves in the world. Get into a gang and feel part of a gang that they want to be. A safe gang. An international gang. A gang that all like if you watched Happy Days as a kid, you'd say that's like the kind of thing we're into. Happy Days. And um, Star Wars, Star Trek. Um, all these kind of things where people will spend their money on it, and then when they get into a relationship they might want to spend their money on the latest thing that they would have done, that they always thought, oh, I'm just going to keep going up the spend on the latest costume or something like that, right? Or you start with a you know whatever it might be, a lightsaber and stuff like that, and you go up saying, I want the robes of a Jedi Knight, and some people will go fully through, and when they get their big salary through, they'll start buying all of that. But then they'll be told, well, no, you have to also pay the rent. So and then you want a car, and you can't buy, so what do you do? And I think the partner, right? The partner, the love of your life, the person you're trying to attract, and you got to spend money on them. Yeah, and you got to spend money on each other, and you have the relationship goes on when you're young, and it's the first time or second time or third time, whereas with me, it's probably going to be like, I mean, I've never been married, right? But it's still going to be like, I mean, what? I was thinking I've had quite a few relationships. I mean, about 10, about give or take. I've had about 10 relationships, yeah. And the last one, I was the first one I had a child with. So that I know of. I'm fairly sure it's the only one that I've had a child with. I think I would like to think they would have told me. Um, you know, I don't know what accent I'm doing now. I think I've kind of slipped into the Florida one, right? Yeah, I don't know. He was really quite gay. I mean, he really kind of, he had like a lot of lilting kind of, you know, well, it was kind of feminine, but it was clearly a guy's voice. Yeah. And he was quite tall, and he wasn't really very sexy. You think like you see like gay people on TV that are like really openly gay, and they're like usually like they're star looking. They're either incredibly good looking facially, or they got an incredibly muscly body or something like that. And this guy didn't strike me as being anything special at all, but he was just like, I'm like, oh my God. I wasn't. I could have been. She probably was. Yeah. So why does he keep coming back? But because he clearly, I can channel him as a character that's quite different to who I am. Yeah, so if I want to put a gay persona on, I can imagine that he would probably come through, as probably was just happening there. It's about as best as I can do. Yeah, so maybe he left me with some kind of gay spirit. I don't know. It was probably like the first time somebody said, "Oh my God, you're like, how what are you, with the cleaner?" Yeah. So where were we at? Oh, there was the stuff with the 1918 flu epidemic, yeah, and there was the idea that the antibiotics are going to cure that. So maybe Knut was right, but at the same time, this seems a nastier disease. So maybe Knut is wrong, because he often just says, "Oh, it's just like flu." As far as he's concerned, there's never been a pandemic of a coronavirus quite like this, but because of how coronaviruses are, because they spread the same way, because they infect the lungs the same way, because the aspects of the disease are pretty much the same, the cause of the disease is not so much the virus itself, but the secondary infection that is what causes real problems. He doesn't talk about the autoimmune aspect of it, like triggering like the virus triggering a massive autoimmune response, which I suspect there's some element of that going on with this virus, which is why this one is nastier than some. In fact, I would like to know whether SARS and MERS were also, because they seem nastier. Yep. Yeah, there's so much I'm just still in two minds on, and that's why I've held off making this follow-up video. I did want to make one every day for like 2 weeks, didn't I? That was what I was trying to say I was going to do, but I've the last one kind of left me a little bit thinking, hey, I normally keep the psychic medium shit quiet, right? He's trying to come up with this Hindu crap again. What the bala bala are you fucking going on about now with your bloody psychic medium crap? Yeah, so I'm normally trying to keep them down. because they're like, you know, they're a little, I suppose it's a bit like Toontown. They're the character that tries to come through me. They're not like out there. No, I give them life. You know what I'm saying? I let them out. I let them speak. And then when I've had enough of them, I try to put a lid on them, like, shut up. Yeah. Now, I never used to be like that. No, I don't think I used to be like that. Uh, Not at all. Whereas now I think I actually become them, you know, which is totally different from when you're just like trying to do that silly voice. I actually let them talk. I let them take over my body and my mouth and lips. I just don't let them totally take over my mind, but they're trying to make me say that. No, they bloody well don't get that. Yeah, so that's that. I could go back to doing the English now if you want. English, yeah. Okay, so I've always got a little bit. I think I've always got a little bit of an American twang because it softens your. It softens. I can put on the English. I could put it on, but it wouldn't be me. Me being me. Yes, there's various ones I could do. I suppose to be as, but they're not. They've been altered. Yes, they have indeed. They've all been altered. I would need to spend some time with an English person who spoke English the way either I used to or the way they still do. I think that's what I mean. Yes, and so this is the best I can rustle up at the moment, and I suppose it seems it's not me. I could even say darling there, couldn't I? Seems it's not me, darling. Seems it's not me. Implication. I'm channeling this one. This one I am allowing to speak for itself. This is the problem. It's not that I lack personality, darling. I have too much of it. They're all fighting, and there's no point in me talking when they're all fighting. So I need to have some space on my own where I can just say, right, none of you are going to talk. And then I'm going to slowly introduce one of you or another of you, and then I'm going to silence one of you or another one of you. Yeah. So that's where it's at, boy. And then I'm like, oh, can I really go back and do the American one again? I don't think so. I don't think you're built for that. Real hard to just come back and keep it going. uh, yes, it is. Once the English one comes in, he says, well, no, you're back to being yourself now. Stop being off being an American again. No, wait, sir, I quite like it. Quite enjoy it. I always make sure he's kind of there with me, you know, but I don't let him through quite as much as I do now. Like if I went out there and start talking, they'd be like trying to turn it off. You know, they're just standing there going, turn that off, or trying to steal it from me. Yeah, we can't both have it. Turn it off on him, and then I'll steal it. Oh, dear, that was funny. Yeah. So, I know I'm lost. I'm lost. I don't know what I'm going to talk about anymore. 48 minutes in, all we've said is antibiotics cure the real diseases associated with flu-like viruses, including coronaviruses. Yeah. So we're still of the opinion that Knut is right. Yeah, but this isn't making full sense. So why are young people dying of it? Why are nurses dying of it? Where, you know, they're tired, they come off shift, they turn blue and they die. Yeah. It seems to suggest that if you get a hefty dose of this stuff, it's really bad for you. Yeah. And for that reason, right, my general feeling, I think I said about this, didn't I, about ventilators. I've ordered one, it hasn't arrived yet, and I'm going to wear it. I really think that the doctors and nurses should be wearing these face mask ventilators and not really wear scrubs, yeah, but don't really bother with the plastic PPE. That's a waste of time. So I'm saying it now, and I think once this big pandemic is over, there will be discussions. People will have time to have this kind of discussion. So I'm having it now. I'm ready to go in and you know, drag out the bodies with my ventilator on. I don't feel I need to have any protective clothing on my hands like gloves or scrubs, or I'd do it naked. I wouldn't care whether you give me scrubs or my normal clothes, or as long as I've got my nose, mouth and eyes protected, I don't see the big deal because I'm just going to either take those clothes off, have a shower, you know. The problem is nose, eyes, and mouth. And I personally think, you've got this visor, haven't you? I don't think it's enough. I think you need the whole contained thing, the full-on Darth Vader mask. Yeah, yeah. Um, but the problem is, it's difficult to, in some ways, to say these kind of things because there are people who are mourning. There are people who are going to work tomorrow morning. Yeah. Uh, yeah, and they're not going to have it. Yeah, and if one doctor says, well, I'm just going to buy it with my own money and turn up and wear a full-on face mask that I'd wear spray painting the car. Yeah. And another one says, well, I'll wear the one that I use when I'm spray painting, spraying chemicals on the crops. Yeah. Um, then they'd be like, well, hang on, the nurses don't have that, so you can't have it. It wouldn't be fair. Yeah, you have to wear NHS gear. You can't wear like super private hospital gear. Yeah. So I don't know. That's what I think. But the doctors might have their opinion. They might say they're too bulky. They get in the way. They're all right if you have the suits so it comes around the back and things like that. But we don't have them. Mine's costing me £30. I'm sure you could just buy your own. And I mean, doctors get paid a lot. Nurses, I agree, don't get paid much, and they probably do most of the work in terms of getting up close and personal with the patients. Lots of patients, lots of different patients on a regular basis, like several times a day. Whereas a doctor, maybe once a week, they go, there's a patient, oh, and right off. Yeah. So that's that. Oh, okay. You want me to see if I can go back to some kind of you see, not all my American voices are so American. You know that yourself. If you're in America, not everyone is like full on. Hell, my folks, they came across a train, caravans across the Midwest. They lived through the Dust Bowl. They lived through the Great Depression. I didn't just put some Beach Boys surfing video on and just suddenly put on the accent and just say, hey, goddamn, I'm a West Coast boy. Americans are so loud. Yeah, they're not like I can't up the volume, man. I don't know if that. I always thought the reason they're loud is they were all taking cocaine. That's what I think. You take cocaine, I'm sure it makes you louder. I don't know. I've never taken it, so I wouldn't know. But I think that's what it is. They take it because the other guy's taking it, and they can't get a word in, so then they take it, and then everyone goes on full volume. You notice that Americans don't whisper. You ever met an American who's just like quiet, uh, just they don't have them, right? Americans don't make good professors because America's a typical like European professor is quiet, soft spoken. America don't create that kind of person in the first place. Okay, they all don't make it. That's why they got to import from Europe if they want to have a quiet, soft spoken professor. That's why we're in American, people. That's why I ain't allowed to do my American all the time, just in case I get too loud and bossy. Just in case my local, quiet, soft-spoken, mayor and policeman and all that, they say he too loud for us. And he's a professor. He shouldn't be. No, they won't give me a job over here, people. You know why? Because they think I'm like an American spy. Because I did all these jobs after I went and took the LSD, and over here that's unacceptable. You're not allowed to take LSD and still have a job. You got to go into the creative industries and things like that. So that's why I'm doing this now. But obviously, I'm trying to be creative and scientific, and I'm trying to avoid the witch doctor label too. And what did we come up with? Well, we've come up with did we keep a secret, or did we tell you about the peptide for Klebsiella pneumonia? That there's a peptide that matches Klebsiella pneumonia that's in the coronavirus, right? So we think it might be an autoimmune disease where the immune system, especially if it's already been tolerized towards or reacted against a previous infection with pneumonia. Yeah, that maybe when it sees the virus, those T cells activate and say, oh my God, it's pneumonia. Right. And so you get a massive inflammation in the lungs that possibly leads to a very sudden death, unexpected sudden death that is not what you would normally get with pneumonia. Is a slow infection where they notice the infection on your breathing, you're coughing stuff up, you can't breathe very well, but you're still alive. They can do it, time to do a chest x-ray, get you in a hospital, get you on oxygen. Then if it deteriorates over the space of a week, they might put you on a ventilator, keep you alive another week or two while they're giving you antibiotics to kill off the bacteria, but which by then is getting close to killing you. Yeah, but I'm hearing about nurses who just going home, turning blue, dying, age in their 20s, I think, you know. All right, a bit tired because they've done an extra shift, and all right, they might have taken in a huge lungful of these viruses, but it's not making a huge amount of sense, so they just suddenly turn blue and die. Yeah. So there's a lot we still don't know. That's important to say. There's difference of opinion, and I've got a strange feeling Knut might be wrong, because if you look at what happened in that Italian town of Bergamo, you got pretty big peak going on there. Yeah. Now, a lot of the ones that died were the old. So if they had self-isolated, I'm sure you would have had a much lower peak of deaths. And if you had allowed all the children or 80% of the children to get it, and 60% of the adults to get it, then after a month the old people could have come out of isolation. Yeah. Now we still therefore think, and this is we're going to go back to the original point. If you were watching any of the earlier videos, you might have seen, that's me looking in the camera there for you now, you might have seen that we talked about our theory, which was derived completely independently from Professor Knut. It was derived without going to work, without being dependent on any grants from any government or any company, other than our welfare payments from the benefit office, which is basically the dole or the unemployment benefit. Yeah, okay. So that might be important for a lot of people who don't know whether to listen to me or trust me. And basically what that's, and of course, I know that I'm not sure if I should listen to or trust Knut Witkowski, professor from the Rockefeller Institute. And I've learned how important the Rockefeller Institute was to the flu outbreak of 1918, how fundamental it was to the founding of American medicine system as we know it today. So, he's an important person. So certainly he was. The question is, if we're not paying him, is he telling us the truth? Because he's giving us information that medical students, when you go to medical school, expensive degree, right? Yeah, they get that information. Maybe he's just telling us a lie. If we want the real truth, we've got to pay him. I don't know. I don't know if we've got to go to medical school to get it. I know that he hasn't mentioned the 1918 flu pandemic in either of the interviews I've seen of his on YouTube. He did one with an American team by the sounds of it, and one with a European, I think German interviewer. Yeah, but it's in English, so you're going to enjoy that. But it's pretty much the same content, right? So we're coming up for an hour. I'll try and just wrap it up now on the hour and just say that previously then our worry was that strange mutants might come out that are worse because we're going to give it a second wave, rather than if we'd allowed infection to run through our schools and herd immunity to build up. And in that sense, I am in agreement with Knut, and it was nice to find somebody who had the same belief as me. However, he doesn't
seem to think there's any worry that in the second wave that there will be dangerous mutants, from what I've heard. And we're looking into the mutation data now, and we've been told by the FAS team that because it's not a segmented virus, the flu virus is a segmented virus. What that allows it to do is kind of act like a pack of cards. So its code can be a different card when you get a different virus. Yeah. So obviously, if you're used to recognizing the King of Spades, and then you suddenly it turned the same disease, the same flu itself turns up looking like the Queen of Hearts, then you got a problem, right? Because you go, hey, Queen of Hearts, nothing to worry about, and boom, same disease, so you're dead. It just looks different, right? So that's what flu can do, influenza, because segmented virus can reassort and shuffle its genes around with other flu viruses and possibly other non-flu viruses. I'm yet to find out if it can take a code from a non-flu virus. Certainly it can take it from animal flu viruses. We were swine flu. I think the 1918 pandemic was based on swine flu, despite what you might hear if you look at the 1918 comedy videos. Uh, they mention avian flu, but if you look at some of the other YouTubes that's on, he later corrects himself and says actually he thinks it was swine flu, not avian flu, even though he did all the cartoons for birds. Yeah. And I guess we're just going to drag on because a little bit. I'll try and finish up soon. So the ninth. So the mutations. There seem to be a lot. There are some hypervariable sites with 20 mutations per site of the 3,100 genomes sequenced. There are 2 sites where a single nucleotide, by the looks of it, or possibly a codon, I'm not fully sure on that yet, mutates 20 times. So that is extraordinary because most sites in the 29, I think it is about approximately 29,000 base pair genome, they only mutate either 0, 1, or maybe 2 times. Yeah, so to suddenly have 2 sites that mutate 20 times is enormous. You also have some sites at 15, some at 10, some at 5. So you're seeing some sites which are hyper mutable. But what they seem to be trying to say, and this is probably what's the top level is believing, is that these are it's likely that the immune system can handle mutations. Certainly in the situation with flu, the reason it struggles is it suddenly puts on an entirely new code. So that would be the equivalent of suddenly having developed from nowhere a new code. Yeah. Conceivably from nowhere. I mean, it's obviously coming from somewhere, yeah. But the mutations, the single point mutations, that's kind of like, instead of an entirely new code, it's just like a new, doing a stitch in an old code. So you say, well, the immune system will recognize the old code, even if it's got a new stitch in it. And they pretty much, I mean, we've discussed this. We've talked about how one mutation might throw off all the antibodies that recognize it. Yeah. But you've also got T cells, which are recognizing peptides from the virus when it gets into the cell. The cell would hopefully chop up some of those viruses and put them on the surface. But of course, the virus immune system might say, well, stop producing MHC on the surface, MHC class 1, so that the cytotoxic CD8 killer T cells can't see it. But there are also cells that say, if you don't put class 1 on your surface, I'm killing you. Yeah, yeah, I think probably natural killer cells, for example. There are going to be cells that do it because they've got to do it. They've all got to do it. It's the law. Probably the T cells themselves, the CD8s themselves, probably. Yeah, so it's something we can look into if we want to improve our immunology. T cell immunology, we could probably just go look that up. So there's always things to do. At the moment, though, we've got plenty to do because with the mutation we've discovered, we did come from a genetics background in an undergraduate degree, but anyone who's ever done a residency in med school knows that just because you covered something in your undergraduate degree, even if it was in quite a lot of depth, does not mean you are going to sit there and write on your own without a group supporting you a scientific paper or make any big scientific discoveries that aren't already being made by a group of specialists working in, say, a virology unit or a genetics unit or a virus evolution unit. And there is a virus evolution unit at Glasgow University, which have challenged the paper published by the Shanghai group. And so there's a big challenge going on, as if to say that paper got published when normally the referees or the reviewers probably should have, or even the editor should have probably said, look, this isn't ready for publication yet. But because it's such an important outbreak, they published it anyway. The McLean group in Glasgow have actually more or less demanded that the Chinese group retract that paper, but they may not get listened to. So that's an important thing, and because it's important, yeah, it's important, but that's something for those experts. But all of a sudden, the experts' opinions on these things is, yeah, because that Chinese group got picked up, their publication got picked up by normal mainstream media, and it got picked up, and the Glasgow group were basically saying it should never have been published. So bear that in mind if you're taking that to heart on the LNS strains that were talked about, right? That the LNS strains apparently don't have any clinical difference, no significant clinical difference, so they've already worked that out. However, you've got to remember that clinical difference, very often somebody dies of a virus when they weren't expected to die from it. It's very possible, especially if they're a nurse, that if there's an L strain and an S strain in a hospital, that they've actually got both of them. And if there's other strains that we don't know much about, that they've got that as well. And so it might take time to sequence, to find out, oh, that nurse died unexpectedly in London or something like that. I'm sure the local hospital will be trying to get sequence data from most of the patients that he worked with, whether they're alive or dead now. Right. And if not, then they should be at least taking samples of sputum or something like that, so we can identify which virus strains they had at a later date as soon as possible. Yeah, and in particular, whenever there's any kind of sudden death of a worker, right? Because this is the whole point of the fear, is that that worker was young, yeah, hardworking, exhausted, yeah, was told he couldn't go home because, according to his mother, because the hospital was already short-staffed and was full of sick patients in an outbreak. Yeah. But he went home after, I don't know, a 10-hour shift or something, and his mom found him turning blue in his bed. He hadn't shown any symptoms and then suddenly went down with it. So that kind of thing is worrying, and it indicates that maybe there's a severely nasty strain out there, more like SARS or MERS, which had a higher death rate, higher percentage death rate. And when I think about these kind of things, I get really worried about what Knut was saying, which was, it's just a respiratory illness. You know, as long as you get to your doctor early and get antibiotics, you'll be fine. Plus, it doesn't tend to hurt young people, even though, I mean, we have seen the charts of how influenza, not only does it kill a lot of people every year, but it also does kill significant numbers of young people. It's just old people on the graph are up here, and then as you get younger, your risk decreases, but it's still there. So we don't really know what the age risk is yet, because we won't know until the end of the outbreak, and we've got the full data of what your risk is, and how many people died from it, and how many people got the disease, and how many people got it but didn't show symptoms, all these kinds of factors, which requires a lot of testing. And some countries will be doing that testing and getting the information, and other countries simply can't afford to do that kind of testing. So there we are. And I don't really think there's much to say other than, oh, there was the genetic side of it. So we figured out that probably one of the important things we need to figure out if we want to know if the mutation rate is particularly unusually high in some parts of the genome is looking at the Ka and the Ks values and comparing them as a ratio. We're probably going to try and move on and do some of that. So if you haven't heard of this, that's what we're doing kind of horrifically boring synchronous, that's the wrong word, synonymous and non-synonymous mutation rates. So in other words, sometimes you get a mutation and nothing changes. That's synonymous. It's like the English word synonym, where you use in literature. A synonym doesn't necessarily change the meaning of the word, but it changes the word. So the word changes, the meaning doesn't, and that's more or less the same with synonymous and non-synonymous changes. So synonymous changes, the amino acid doesn't change, but the DNA does, or in this case, with the virus, the RNA changes. But as I say, the amino acid stays the same, synonymous. Non-synonymous is where the DNA changes and it causes an amino acid change in that protein, and that basically means the protein is now a mutant protein, and it may function differently. Yeah, that could mean, although your immune system, if it's working, if it's had time, yeah, to get ready, because it's seen it at a low dose, yeah, that it might mean the immune system doesn't have a problem with the new mutation because, like I said, it's just a stitch in an old code, yeah, or a new button here or there, right? It might make a big difference if the mutation completely changes the shape of the coat. Could probably happen, possibly, yeah, but it's unlikely, and therefore they say some vaccine will work, although they didn't. They obviously bear in mind the fact that this could take 1 to 5, 10 years until the vaccine's there. You just don't know, and don't go believing them when they say it'll be ready in a year. I'm really sure it won't be. They can try, and it might work, but the chances at best are 10% of it working. I would say for them to get it ready and for it to work within a year, probably 10% at best. But they're saying, oh, we might have a vaccine in a year. I reckon they've got a 10% chance of that. Yeah, but they say it as if, well, we might have one, and everyone goes, oh, we'll have a vaccine in a year. That's what they think. No, they're not telling you the chances, and hard to tell. It's very, very difficult to know. I'm just giving you my personal opinion. I think there's only a 10% chance of them getting it ready within the year. That works and covers everyone, and also prevents mutations from taking over. Because as soon as the virus has mutated to escape the vaccine, if it ever happens, once it's happened, that vaccine is obsolete, completely and utterly useless. I mean, it might work for some people, yeah, but it won't work. It will only work, it might buy them a month or two, yeah, till the next one comes along, till the nasty one. Well, it might not be nastier till the new one comes along. There's two things that can happen with a mutated virus. Is it might be nastier, just because it might be, and it might escape the immune system. So they're the things we've heard information that tells us worry less, and we've had information that in some ways makes us worry more, because we weren't expecting the very hypervariable sites. But I think on balance, we're panicking less about the idea of mutations in this virus causing massive death in the population. But we're still a bit concerned that herd immunity is going to be lacking. So these children, these people, young people, part of the workforce, all of that, they're not going to have this herd immunity. So when you take up the lockdown, and most places know what I mean by lockdown now, shelter in place for the young, stopping schools, closing offices and workplaces, and sports events being closed down. When they reverse all this, you have to realize there will be another return of this virus, a second wave. And what this lockdown has really bought us is not protection from the virus. It's just bought it our health services, health providers. It's bought them time to ensure that they've got enough ventilators. And it's and in the first wave, it has flattened the curve. So they actually they don't need the ventilators that they would have needed for a peak. They just use the ventilators that they need for a plateau. Yeah. But the second wave, when that comes, are they going to say, oh, we're going to do a lockdown to get a flattened curve? Or with the second peak, are they going to say, no need for lockdown, we've got ventilators in place, and then it goes up? Knut says it doesn't, but Knut's the only one who is, I've heard, saying it doesn't, apart from, well, I never said that herd immunity would immediately bring this down. Knut says there is no peak like this, there is only this. But there was in Philadelphia and St. Louis. So can he answer that question? Why there was a massive peak in Philadelphia and St. Louis said, well, no, we'll close shops. So Philadelphia got this and St. Louis got this. And so we're all doing the lockdown to get this plateau. But that's on the first wave. On the second wave, it's going to go up again. Whether you've got mutations or not, there'll be the herd immunity from all of these people who got it and survived. And so your plateau, your big peak will be smaller because some people have got it and herd immunity will happen quicker. Yeah, but you'll still get a peak. Yeah, and in that peak, you'll have lots of mutations. So do we worry? The danger is still a little bit on my mind, but I'm trying to relax a little bit. I think it's becoming less and less likely that the second wave will present a more serious strain. But 1918, there was a mild wave, and then there was a deadly second wave. So that has made me think maybe I'm right. But then I'm thinking that was influenza. Well, we are pretty sure that the first wave was genuine influenza, but we don't know what the second wave was, and it could have been a coronavirus. You see? Yeah. And that then just leaves us thinking, well, maybe coronaviruses are a more deadly form of flu, because we're certainly seeing it this time, than normal flu. I'm not sure that the coronaviruses are more deadly than flu. I'm not convinced. I know we've made a big song and dance about it. Yeah. But SARS and MERS did seem to be deadly. They were deadly, but they blew themselves out by being so deadly that everyone died. Yeah, but if you look at it, SARS and MERS were probably, they were probably infectious patients for a couple of weeks. And SARS, I mean, this is the thing. Knut says one thing. He says that one of the reasons we didn't have a coronavirus outbreak for the last 16 years in most of the world is because there was herd immunity to SARS. But there was, that's only if enormous numbers of people contracted a harmless disease, an asymptomatic. If billions of people were asymptomatic and only a few thousand died. And I think he's mad to say that we all had herd immunity to SARS. I've never couldn't imagine any epidemiologist claiming that, because there weren't enough cases of it around the world. And I suppose his comeback might be, well, we don't know because we didn't have antibody testing, so you can't actually say for definite. So I suppose this time around we'll get antibody testing done increasingly. Yeah. And who knows, maybe I'll get back to work and do some of that. And I'd be more than happy to do that, help the NHS, save lives. I'd be more than happy to do that. And I don't think the fact that I've had an inquiring mind and at times doubted whether the testing was the right strategy, doubted whether the government strategy was right, I'm not afraid of taking that with me into the interview when they might offer me the job. But it's possible I never get the job because people say too many people say he's dangerous. He's got dangerous ideas because he thinks we should allow the virus to infect everybody. He's just insane, crazy, and so I won't even get there. So in the meantime, I've got to become a psychic medium and entertain people on my YouTube channel. And I'm not even sure that anyone's watched it and enjoyed it yet, but I am getting kind of different psychic feedback lately. So I do seem to find that some of my friends are warming to me on the psychic level. So maybe it's that. Maybe that's where I'm getting my love from these days. So maybe it's that one. I go back and get some love. I'm having enough of this one now. I'm going to upload it maybe. I think I will upload it a bit longer. A bit long, but maybe I got one fan. But if I can make a difference of one person's life with this one now. I don't have to talk like this. They don't have to like it when I talk like this. But if I can make them understand one thing, you know, then you never know. You might get holiday. Okay, now I'm mostly going to say goodbye. Thank you for listening. This has been Jamie talking to you on the computer thingy. Okay. Oh, do Irish. Do I not? I don't do Irish now because I've got Irish roots and I live in England. This is interesting one. This is almost Dublin. See, I don't like the Dublin accent at all. It's so dark and dirty. Yeah, I don't like it. No. I mean, I like the Liverpool accent now. That's an English accent in England for where a lot of the Irish people go. And I like, I love, uh, I don't know, any of the Irish accents. Just don't like dirt and dirty Dublin accent. Like, just filthy. Like, they've been living down a coal mine all their life. Like, and God knows why, because there's no coal mine in Dublin. No, it's just pub after pub. That I tell you, that the pub is the home of the witch. She's a house of ill repute. It's the home of the witch. You go there thinking you're going to get dancing girls like they see in the saloons of the mid of the West Coast America, like. And you know what? You go all the way to the West Coast America and you don't find one saloon with girls showing their petticoats and nothing. I tell you, I'd rather been in Dublin because at least I might have seen a bit of that there. Actually, it's not entirely true. It's not entirely true, but I don't really want to think we should go talking about my lovely friend Linda now in any disparaging way at all. Well, we can't because I didn't get to see a petticoat. Is that because she didn't have one? Or I'll never know. She might have done. I never got underneath her clothes. I think I was pretending to be gay when I was over there. Like, I got loads of Dublin ones that are coming through now. Oh, hang on, that's Birmingham. There's a bit. Yeah. Um, I'd like to meet a Galway girl. Oh God, it's gone Birmingham. Oh no, I thought that was going to be Irish. Irish. I can't find Irish there. I haven't got any. Have you got any Irish there? No, sorry, not allowed any Irish. Not since the troubles. Like, they'll think you're a terrorist. Like, and lock you up and that. You gotta do your English accent when you're over there. Like,